Good evening. It is March 11th, and this is the regular meeting for the Public Works Committee for the RTM. And I would like to have a motion to approve the minutes from February 26th.
So moved.
And actually, because we have a lot of stuff.
This is what you emailed around?
Yeah.
No, I have it out here right now.
So you'll see on the second page are the, hey Richard. There you go. So the first page is our agenda, the second page are the minutes. So we have a motion from Jim to approve. We have a second? Okay. All in favor? Opposed?
One abstention, I was away.
Thank you. And then we will, the January 22nd, I know we haven't approved yet. For some reason, there's a problem on the website, and I can't pull them down, so I have to find the email where I sent them to. So the next thing on the agenda is to go over, hopefully you all remember the New Canaan ordinance that was just passed. Does everybody remember that? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think that we will definitely be asked if we examine this and what we thought about it, and if ours turns out different, what our justifications were or are. So I think we should take a look at it again. And I had pointed out some of the differences, the main differences. The ordinance is not in this package, so you can look on it. Share with me. So one of the main differences is, the mill number. So New Canaan has a 6 mill, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Another big difference is that, how last meeting we were trying to work out the store size and how to work with the smaller, carve out for the smaller stores. So what they did is they did it a little bit differently, and they have, for any stores that are over 10,000 square feet, when it comes to a paper bag, they have the requirements that we discussed at our last meeting, right? The 40%, the recyclable, pretty much the standard language for that. They have, that's for the larger stores. That's for stores that are over 10,000 square feet. So the smaller stores do not have those restrictions on their paper bag. They have one other difference, which actually I haven't seen in any other ordinance that I've looked at so far, or I think it may be in one other state. Hey, Patrick, was a carve out for smaller bags. So of a bag that's 600 cubic inches or less, any store, large or small, can hand that out. And I think that is about a little bit bigger than this kind of a bag. Okay, I think this is about 600 cubic inches. Okay, so that was another one of their differences. And they had a 6-month flat effective date. So those were, in my opinion, the large differences. Does anyone have any other, did you notice anything else?
I thought they weren't charging the smaller stores a dime, or making the smaller stores charge a dime either. But I could be wrong about that. I just spoke to one of the people who was involved in the bank back then.
I think what they did was they gave them a longer period of time to comply.
Did they charge?
Yeah.
I don't know, it says any more than 10,000 square feet, 10%.
Yeah.
So maybe they
Yeah, so
don't-
anyone that's over 10,000 charges the 10
Let's charge
cents.
the 10 cents. I think if you're under 10,000 square
You
feet,
don't.
you don't need to charge it.
Right.
Which I saw as the
You
biggest.
also don't have to have recycled bags.
Okay, thanks.
Monica?
So,
They also called out specifically that there would be a sales tax charge on the 10 cents that's collected. And I think that's, I don't know if that's a matter of state law or local ordinance, but there would be, if we charge that as well too, we'd have to collect sales tax on that.
You know, that, I asked Wayne about that because.
Oh, what did he say?
And he's getting back to me on that. That's
Okay.
not a cut and dry answer.
Okay.
I noticed that in New York, in one of Suffolk County, I think, that was actually a question that they asked, is this 10 cents a taxable event?
Right.
And it's not clear.
I
Um,
defer
The
to.
sales tax is a state issue, it's not a town ordinance issue. We can't mandate or not mandate a sales tax. So I think that doesn't need to be in our ordinance.
Right.
Yeah, we're discussing that in this conflict
Right.
If the state requires us to collect.
I mean, I've seen the differences that New Canaan has from our approach, but I think our approach is fine. I mean, giving the stores an extra 12 months, the smaller stores to comply, I think should satisfy the concerns we've heard from local businesses. So I'm not ready to start ripping apart the current ordinance to, conform ours to New Canaan's,
Okay.
unless other people feel differently.
No. They also call out specifically that the director of health or their designee will be responsible for enforcement, where we have a slightly different model.
Right, right. Okay, and the 6 is a big difference.
I have a question. This is back from what, is this a 12? Or it's not?
Get out your calipers.
Yeah, this, I know this bag is a 12.
Is there a label on it or anything?
No, it doesn't say.
This seems bigger than that. Somehow, Chamber of Commerce told me this is a 12. So,
That has to be marked.
I don't, you know what, I don't see them on, and this is a 4.
Very good. 100% polypropylene, reusable,
Made in China.
they're all made.
Yeah.
There's a batch number. It's
See, my point is,
Gotta see 1,000 pieces.
none of these bags are common at Wegmans, but I don't think any of these bags stay this 12 millimeter.
Doesn't say.
Right. So, and my question is, what bag is 12 millimeter?
I know this one is.
And this one is heavier than that.
And I know this is a 3, because it says it on the bag.
I mean, I think the committee, we all discussed the appropriate mill rate at our last meeting and arrived at 12. Are we talking
Yeah,
about
I
revisiting
agree.
that
I
discussion?
was just
yet?
curious, though, because I have about 30 of these bags at home.
Well, remember, any bag you have, you can bring in,
Right.
right?
I was just
Obviously. Okay. No, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to explaining our differences with New Canaan. That's all. I think that's going to be a valid question, and there, people are going to ask why a 12 bag is much more expensive. According to Susan Cater from the Chamber of Commerce, a 4, she wrote, the 4 mil bag from Ensign is 100% from recycled bottles. She thinks that to make this particular store change in 6 months, which is obviously not what we're talking about, is difficult. The 12 mil bag will be 100% more expensive than a 4 mil bag. And I did my own little research. It's really, for some reason, hard to find this, but it is between a 2 mil bag and a 4 mil bag, it's about twice as expensive for plastic bags. And to go up to an 8, it is at least 8 times more expensive. So there's a big difference, and there's a big difference between even a 4 or an 8. Forget about
And
the
again, the
12.
goal there is to get people to stop giving out the plastic altogether.
Correct.
Right, we're not trying to impose a cost on the business, we're trying to encourage the consumer to change their mind. And Patrick, I think you have articulated this very clearly and frequently, that we're trying, changing behavior is hard,
Okay.
right? I think we came to the 12 meeting, number 2 meetings ago, and last meeting, we kind of went around the houses, and then we came back to the 12.
Okay.
And I think as a group, we have continued to be comfortable with the 12 for a variety of strategic reasons. So I think I'm very comfortable personally leaving that in.
How about you, Jim?
I defer to the group. You've done all the work on this in the past 2 meetings I've been away, so I'm comfortable with 12.
Okay, well,
I don't have, a strong position per se about 12. My position is simply, I don't want to put any more financial burden on the store owner than what the 10 cents covers. So if going from today's 2, if you will, to a 12 costs them more than 10 cents a bag, then that's where I start to get uncomfortable.
yeah, I think though, they don't have to go, I'm thinking about stores that hand out a plastic bag, so now instead of handing out, as in New Canaan, a 6, they hand out a 12. I think the reality is that stores actually won't even hand out those bags to begin with. So I just want to make sure that we cover that.
Right, they'll be using paper bags.
Right.
20% of
Which
those
we're gonna,
consumer recyclables.
yes, which we'll come back to, so.
Yeah, I'm on the same thing. You purchase this at Wegmans. Wegmans doesn't give it to you free.
Right.
So I think this bag, Wegmans sells for $2.99. And I think anybody who will have a 12 mil bag is going to have to pay for it. I can't imagine any merchant.
Okay, okay, so now, okay, I'm gonna, okay, so we're done with the New Canaan. All right, there's just any, do you have anything? No, you're good. And Patrick, your position on the 12 is good, okay.
But I think the other, again, just if you're comparing to New Canaan, I think they accommodated the small stores differently than we did, right?
Right.
We gave the small stores an extra year to comply in order to allow them to burn off their inventory, give them more time to figure out how to comply, and to preclude the risk, or to minimize the risk that they'll have to comply with one set of rules in 2020 that we would write, and another set of rules in 2021 that the state would write. Because if the state comes in and supersedes us in the next 18 months, we don't want them to get whipsawed twice. And I think, again, as a group, I think we were very sensitive to the needs of the smaller businesses, and I think that was a wise thing that this group came to decide last night.
Okay, so they are giving the smaller businesses an even bigger break though, because they're not requiring them to meet any standards on the recyclable content. How
But I think we heard all the folks who spoke at the public meeting. I'm trying to recall the numbers. I think I did the counting and now I can't remember them.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it was 4 or 5 store owners who had concerns with the.
There were 63, when I did the letters, there were 63 people, and that includes 63 yes, 5 businesses were pro, 6 individuals were negative, 7 businesses were negative.
Right.
And I think 6 letter writers had concerns for the stores.
So from that, what I sense both at the meeting and what you just described, there's a significant desire on the part of the folks in this town to move forward with a ban again, the wrong word, to do a management program with regulation that governs checkout bags. And I think we would be doing that group of people a disservice if we just let everybody under 10,000 or 5,000 square feet ski.
Right, and they're the customers for these stores.
Yeah.
They're the clients, so.
And to add to what you said, the other thing is, the people who were opposed to, some of them actually were opposed to because of the hardship, because they're already ordered bags, and we actually alleviate that by giving the small businesses enough time to go on their inventory. So I think half of those objections go away, and so, we just funnel it down.
Okay. The other big difference was this exemption for this size bag. Do we want to include that at all?
No one here in Darien has asked for it. So, why are we following New Canaan just because they did it?
Well, I want to consider it because this would help my shoe guy.
Okay.
So
So you're saying the shoe guy asked for it?
No, he did not.
So no disrespect to the shoe guy, right? He's one guy, right? And I'm not trying to be, I don't want to run roughshod over anybody, but again, he's got an extra year to comply. He's got an extra year to figure out how to do that. Maybe there's a different creative approach that he can use to giving people their shoes back. That doesn't involve anything disposable at all, which is the goal, again, of what we're asking everyone to do. So I think we're putting the incentives in the right place. Let's not-
I don't see it that way. I see this as just putting a burden on the retailer. Okay, that's not an incentive, that's a burden. That's almost like a penalty. You're trying to sell your customer, you're gonna give them a bag, but we're gonna, in fact, penalize you in certain ways that you can only service your customer with a bag in this fashion. Okay, and that, I am sorry, I'm coming back to what I said earlier, right? I don't want to penalize or punish retailers for a behavior on the part of the consumer. It just doesn't make sense to me,
So if
okay?
I can.
Why do we,
Wait, just let me finish one thing.
I'm just saying that I just don't understand the mentality of, going after the retailer here, so to speak. The retailers have so many problems right now as it is. There are stores closing by the thousands in this country right now. And so I don't know why Darien is insistent on just adding more problems to the retailer. I don't understand that.
So I did a quick search for the paper bags which I forwarded to Monica and Patrick. And actually, some of the, like the shoe guy, I think what would be helpful is to actually show them that you can order these bags online. And they're significantly less expensive than what maybe the present vendor is saying that it will be. So, it actually is covered by the 10 cent if they go to the smaller paper bags as opposed to a large plastic bag. The 40% recycled content bags are available online, and you can buy them. So,
And how does that compare to the bags they're using now? They're using basically just a simple
I'll forward
recycled
that to
bag.
you. I'll
Okay.
forward you because I
So
found that in.
the issue is, what are their costs today,
Right.
and what will their costs be tomorrow?
Did you look into
Okay.
it?
I did, and to Arpita's point, it's relatively easy to find bag suppliers. And if you go to, I'm not trying to promote, well, maybe I'm promoting international trade, going to Alibaba.
I didn't even go
it's-
to Alibaba.
No, I understand, but
Just
my
to be
point
clear.
is, it's very easy to find recycled bags. Now, whether you want to believe what's printed on the bag, recycled.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it is a bigger point. I mean, if you, in my wife's business, she happens to purchase from a U.S. domestic supplier who actually sources overseas. And so there's a check and balance on the content and all of that. But the point is, it's not difficult to find a variety of content. And I think, Rolf, I think Arpita's right that actually with a little bit of searching, which is not easy for everybody, I'll admit, but you can find cheaper bags, but that size bag is cheaper than, I think what I heard you saying is paying 4 cents or 5 cents a bag. You can get them for 3 cents a bag, 2 cents a bag.
Or 6 cents if you have a small.
Yeah, I guess the other point is, we're trying to encourage, I think, or I thought I understood, that we were trying to encourage changing of behavior. That's not just consumer behavior. It's also trying to cajole and try and get, I think, retailers to change their behavior to be a little bit more ecologically smart about this. And sometimes that's going to mean you've got to change some of your process. I get it with the shoe guy. You drop your shoes off, they go into a bag, they get stapled, the ticket. There's a process. I get all that. And nobody wants to change the process because they've been doing it for 25 or 40 years or whatever it is. At the same time, I think the right answer is where everybody has to do something to change. It's not an unfair burden on any one party or the other.
So I just pulled up the email that I sent to Patrick and Monica. So a 12 by 7 by 17, 40% recycled content bag, if you buy 200 of those, just 200, then the cost per 100 is $12.96, which breaks down to about 13 cents. So, if we are, the regular bag is costing them 4 cents and then we're adding this. I don't even think they're using the 12 by 7 by 17. They might be using the the 11 by 6 by 17, or which drops down even more in price to about 9.9 cents per bag. So.
I think we're getting really down into the weeds in some
Well, but
ways.
just to
because-
address Ralph's point, I mean, he has a fair point that
That's how a retailer lives. A retailer lives
Right. No,
in the
and
weeds.
I know how retail
Okay?
So I just want to Because
And so that chart has the price for the same bag, it's just a recycled bag?
Yeah, so it actually has, you know, and you get a discount, yeah, so it's like the show we carry for 40%, and then there's another link that takes you to 100% recycled bags as well.
Look, this is also where, you know, the chamber
All right, is that
should be able to
posted
step in and
somewhere?
say, let's help our
Yeah,
retailers, we'll help them
exactly.
find alternatives.
Right.
And other groups to step in, and help them find alternatives, healthier and more ecologically friendly alternatives.
I don't think any of us wants to be in the position of over-regulating, but we regulate a whole bunch of things in town for health and safety on consumers. Where in theory, they can vote with their feet, but in practice, you have to protect people from, you regulate the business, because that's what the town can more easily regulate, a couple of dozen or a couple hundred businesses. Think restaurants, think, versus regulating all consumer behavior.
I agree with Ralph in that I don't ever want to put any more burden on the businesses. And that sounds like a viable cost that is almost equitable. So I don't want to put the burden on, and with that kind of evidence, I think that it would be doable.
And
You'd
again,
actually be doing better because they'd be getting the dime, and you said the bags are 4 cents now, so these bags you're looking at are about 3.5 cents, so, you know, he'd actually be
no, not 3
Well,
cents,
then
they're 13 cents.
13 cents, but you're getting the dime back, or the
Right,
merchant
so they're
will.
now 3 cents.
So it's costing 3 cents
Right.
versus 4 cents now,
And you're
so
going to probably.
it's better than a wash.
And you're gonna give out
Anybody.
less bags, hopefully, with more
Right.
people
Right.
showing up without that. And Rolf, I'm a small business, so I'm very acutely aware of small business concerns. So to me, if it was costing $1, I would say that let's carve out something to keep the shoe guy out of it, and say Monica's shoe guy. But I don't think it's.
And the
it's a
shoe
burden.
guy has never asked for anything.
Yeah,
He is not,
yeah, no, and we need our shoe guy in town, so.
I'm just getting free shoe stuff for that. No.
Right, unless you all want to go to Stratford Mall. No, but I do think it's a fair, I feel comfortable putting this, and I do think that if one of the ladies in the room doesn't go and help the guy, then I will go personally and show him how to order it.
yes, I think I'll take care of the shoe guy.
Okay.
So it seems the sense of the meeting is not to create an additional exemption for smaller bags.
I'd agree.
I agree.
Yes? That,
Let me ask you a question on that. Restaurants are not exempted,
Correct.
so that's I don't know how many restaurants we've heard from. Because there is a restaurant, you walk out with takeout, that doesn't go out in a plastic bag.
now, you know what I had takeout, last night on the way home from the airport, and it was in a paper bag that was
I've
totally
always had
compliant.
paper bag.
It was,
takeout in town. I've
wait, I'm
never
still
seen-
speaking. It was in Electron, so it wasn't in.
I have data from a local restaurant, which I can share when we get to that part of the agenda, about paper versus plastic.
Okay. But that's a good point, you know, and I'm thinking like, you know, Uncle's Deli, places like that, you know,
Right.
the smaller bags. But I think it's doable. I just wanted to point that out, that there was a difference. So the sense is I'm sorry,
In fairness, I think Vivala's gives out in paper bags.
what's that?
Vivala gives out in paper bags, Uncle's maybe gives out in plastic.
No, Uncle's gives out the paper,
Okay, so.
but it wouldn't be, but it's not compliant right now,
Got it.
so. Okay, so the sense is that we are not going to carve out the 600 mil cubic inch kind of deal, that's, no, okay. So basically, good luck, New Canaan, we're gonna do it differently, right?
Yeah, I don't think New Canaan goes far.
Okay. I have next on here, update on the Greenwich bag ordinance. Remember I asked Lindsay to check and see how that's going. Lindsay is obviously not here, but it is so far so good, going fine. Retailers she reached out to the Chamber of Commerce leader, and so far the reception has been stores are comfortable with it.
I've also been told their RTM is going to revisit the 10-cent fee. That's coming up on their agenda, that they may want to impose that. Because there's a lot of feeling that it's a mistake not to. And it was done from the floor of the RTM, in the Greenwich RTM.
Right.
So that may be coming back.
I'm gonna just go back to the mill thing one last time. I did go into McLaughlin's, and they have this, that kind of canvasy bag, it's kind of looks like this. And so I asked her what she thought, and she said, oh, we're totally on board with this because, we talked to headquarters and they're all good. And I said, okay, what is your bag? And she said, she sent me an email just the other day, it's 2 1/4. So it got me thinking that the majority of states outside of Connecticut are between 2 1/4 and 4. So we are also asking stores like that to change completely for one state right now. So I just want you to be aware of that. Okay, now the other option is they could just stop with the plastic and just give up the paper. So that is an option. But it's just, in the big picture of things. Anything else on Greenwich? Anybody have any? Yeah.
I'm sorry, what store is McLaughlin's?
It's in town.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's a
is
really
it
cute
restaurant?
woman's
Is it-
store, yeah. I don't think you go there.
It's across from
You should
Greaves.
stop by.
Okay,
It's across the post road from Greaves, they just opened.
okay, so next to the church? So next to the church? or-
It
gas
sells
station.
women's clothing.
Okay,
10-20 post.
so I'm
Yeah,
gonna,
it's a
in that
chain.
row.
It's
I'm
a
gonna
chain.
defer then to other experts on the committee.
Well, no,
Good choice.
my thought is that this is a national store, it's a chain. And they think they're compliant because they're compliant in other states, but they won't be compliant in this state.
Right, okay, got it.
But
Thank
they
you.
could
Well, in
also.
this town.
In this town, right. And I also asked Brooks Brothers, and they said they're in Greenwich, they're in Westport, this is not a big deal for them, so. Okay. Store interviews. I did circle back to the sports shop because I just wanted to make sure I understood. They have about 100,000 bags on hand now of their regular usage bags. They have about, and that's about 1 year's worth, a little bit less. They use about 1,200 bags a year. The bags cost them about, on average, $1 a bag. They have about 2 years' worth of Christmas bags on hand, obviously because Christmas comes once a year. They are very interested in being green. They are looking for ways to move forward on this on their own. They are very against the 10 cents charge. They feel that it is not in keeping with their standards. They don't charge for wrapping, for delivery, for alterations. They don't feel it's a friendly policy. It doesn't feel right. But obviously, if it's an ordinance that's passed by the town, then it's an ordinance that's passed by the town. But I just wanted to pass that on. So I asked people to go around and chat with businesses. Who chatted? Who'd you chat with?
In my district, a little delicatessen called Mama Leone's on the post road at the foot of Narodin Avenue.
Good, a restaurant, that's great.
Restaurant, open from 5 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. Heavy to-go food trade. You can dine there if you really wish, but it's a lot of people coming in and grabbing sandwiches and stuff. The guy who runs it is not a member of the chamber, but was very up to speed on what it is we're doing. And he's been telling people as they come in and get their plastic bag with their sandwich in it, that soon's gonna cost you $10. And they basically go, a lot of kids from the high school go down there and they go, whatever, it's just Dad's credit card. So he doesn't get a lot of pushback from the owners, from the customers. He's been telling his staff, ask people if this is to go or not, and he has trouble with getting his own staff not to give him a plastic bag, even if they're gonna go and sit down and eat the sandwich right in the store, which is a bit infuriating to him. I asked him how many bags he used. He uses 100 plastic bags a day. Which was
The ones we're talking about?
Just the kind of, the
single use?
light flimsy ones, which I thought was a surprising number
Yeah, that is.
for basically, a deli. He also has paper. He doesn't know. he didn't know if it was, recycled content or otherwise. But he's happy to do whatever it is we want to do, and he's not getting a lot of pushback from his customers. If it's not the kind of place you're going to bring a reusable bag, take your canvas bag and say, put my sandwich in the bag. It's a lot of blue-collar guys working out of trucks that grab a sandwich, go to the work site, et cetera, et cetera. But that was a place that I thought was kind of like off of everybody else's radar. A little different than Uncle's, which does use paper bags, but does a very brisk trade with people who are from out of town.
Thanks. Anybody else?
I visited several different retailers, Fisherman's Net, Darien Cheese and Fine Foods, and the Wine Port Darien. Fisherman's Net, everything he does is paper for the most part, except for certain types of seafood. You mentioned lobster, he has to put in a plastic bag. So he was really not aware, certainly not in detail, about what's being contemplated in the way of the ordinance. He gets his paper bags through a distributor. Everything he does is bleach white. Okay. And he can get replenishment within a day, kind of thing. So he doesn't carry a huge inventory, he doesn't need to, okay, because he can get it very quickly. I mentioned about the 10-cent fee. He didn't, really receive that all that well. He was like, I'm not sure I want to charge that to the customer. I mentioned to him about the 40% post-consumer content on the makeup of the paper, which he was, what's that, basically. He had no awareness of what that meant or what the implications were to his bag buying, if you will. The same can be said with regards to the dairy and cheese and fine foods. She was a little bit more aware that an ordinance was being put together. He is not, the Fisherman's Net is not a member of the Chamber of Commerce. The dairy and cheese and the wine store are both members of the Chamber of Commerce. I just want to check my notes here.
Wouldn't both of those be exempt because they're selling food?
Well,
No, restaurants are.
As a product bag, you're
As a
talking about?
product bag, yeah.
well, that might be an alternative for them.
I don't think so, because it's,
Presently, they're paper bags. I mean, the cheese food also used a brown paper bag, and again, not 40% recycled material.
Yeah.
Container wrapped foods, meat or fish, whether packaged or not,
so
so.
the first sentence says not intended to be a checkout bag. And then it says for in-store use only.
So that's like,
Oh,
you're
okay.
getting
Right.
your.
So the
It's like
bag
when
that
you
he
go
puts
through
the
the produce
lobster in,
department. Hmm?
the bag he puts the lobster in would be covered, but the bag he puts the lobster in the bag in would not.
Okay. Something like that, maybe, I don't know. I think, he uses a heavier plastic bag because the lobster is still, I think, alive when he sells it to them, and they're kind of moving around it, whatever. So, he's got some special circumstances there.
50 mil.
The liquor store, I mean, everything, unless they box it, everything they're selling to you is got to go in a paper bag. So they use quite a number of paper bags. One thing that the Fisherman's Net wanted to point out, because I said to him, we're trying to encourage you to use reusable bags. And he said, well, there is something I'm not sure everybody's totally aware of with the reusable bags, and that is you have to keep them clean because they can be harbingers of bacteria. And if they're not kept clean, you can get all kinds of things that can grow in there. And I said, that's a good point. With regards to the wine port, he had apparently at one time made up 500 reusable bags and gave them away. And he said he saw maybe just a few customers return that actually came to the shop and used it. So it's a good giveaway, but the effectiveness is really not clear from that experience. He too, when I mentioned the 40% recycled paper component, was like, what's that?
So we're gonna need to do some educating.
Yeah, I think they're very much unaware of that particular aspect. And I said, in talking about cost, I said, well, I can't make a comment about the 10 cents because I'm totally unfamiliar with this 40% aspect and what the cost implications are. So there definitely has to be an awareness and an education about that.
Okay. Did anyone else visit? Anyone else? No? Okay, thanks, Will. Okay, we're gonna move on to, in the packet that I handed out to you are the public health and safety minutes on page 4. Does everybody have a packet? Right, okay. So, so where we are in this process now is we're meeting today, and TGS&A will meet tomorrow. I'll actually go to their meeting and let them know where we are. These are the notes from the last public health and safety meeting, and they meet again next week, I believe. The high points of this is, as you probably realize, they're not primary on this, and they're working on other things. The takeaway on this, though, was that they were not in charge of the 10-cent fee. They did have a vote on that. It was 8 against 6-4. And I asked MAC, they actually, it's not in the minutes, but they want this bag to be, they're in favor of the 3 mil bag. That was their position as the committee. Okay? That could change next week, but that's where they were on February 25th.
Can I ask a process question? So you're going to go to TGS&A tomorrow night and share with them the results of our work. They still haven't seen the final outcome of whatever Public Works is coming up with, right?
Well, this is the final outcome for Public Works.
Oh, it is?
Unless they change their mind.
Okay. And so what's the process to meld all 3 of these? Ours is pretty close to TGS&A, but
Right.
what's the process to come up with one proposed ordinance?
I'll probably go to the public health and safety meeting and try to answer some of their questions and explain to them our committee's position and see if additional information from our committee will help them. But, you know, it's the RTM is 99 people. Everybody has their own opinion. And,
Right.
you know, when we get out there, we're all going to stand and vote for, you know, on our own.
Yeah, but what is the ordinance that is going to be put before the body? Is it ours? Is it TGS&A's?
We'll
Well,
work
Frank Kemp has drafted the version that's in front of us now.
Okay.
Up to this
He's
point.
worked with us on it.
Yes.
Monica and I had
Right.
some discussions about our last meeting, so the current draft is from Frank going to his committee, and
So it's
this
gonna be
reflects our discussion from our
TGS&A's
last meeting.
TGS&A's proposed ordinance that will go through the public hearing and then to the RTM.
It'll be ours, we're
We
primary.
are the primary.
So
What's
Yeah.
Frank Kemp writing?
So
then?
Jim, I think it's ours, but Frank Kemp is, I think, doing the drafting in coordination with
Right.
Monica.
Right.
So effectively, even though Frank is doing the work, my understanding is that this is an ordinance that will, a draft that will reflect the input that we have and they have,
Right.
Okay.
right?
No,
And
but
it's-
I know what you're saying, Jim. You're
Yeah.
saying, well, if we don't agree on this, how does it come out? It could very well be that our committee votes one way and their committees vote a different way. I don't see that actually shaken out like that, but it could happen. It could happen. It's individuals' opinions, and they have some people that have strong opinions. So, but the ordinance that is written will be written with their input, but primarily our committee, because we're primary.
Okay.
So they will be able to voice their hesitancies, or what do you call it, Frank? What do you-
Reservation.
No.
Minority-
They can do a
minority
minority
opinions,
report, yes.
Right.
But the ordinance will be very close to what you're gonna see later on in this package.
I'd also note to Monica's comment a moment ago that their committee was 8-6 against on the particular issue of the charge. So it's not like it would take a lot of either convincing, or even if you just aggregate all votes of the 3 committees together, you know, it would still be pretty overwhelmingly in favor of the charge. And, you know, I think I think we'll have to make a case for the 12 mil thickness, but I think we've done that amongst ourselves. I think we can articulate that to the group.
Okay. All right, so now, next let's go to the actual ordinance. And I'm gonna ask David, so David and Frank and I, but really David and Frank, worked on, so Frank, so back up. So we're working on the ordinance, but a lot of this is just mumbo jumbo kind of stuff, right? And so there are these big, the variables that we discuss all of the time, the mill, et cetera, et cetera. So those things we're hammering out right now, but a lot of the language, you know, we can get this ball down the field without having these variables nailed down. And that's what David and Frank are doing. So does that answer your question, Jim, on
Be
as far
Frank
as?
Kemp, right? No.
Frank Cap, yeah.
Yes, does that answer your question,
Yeah,
Jim?
that's fine.
Like,
So-
okay.
So after our last meeting, I took the comments that we all had and, I had a couple other kind of more technical things and created a new red line that I sent to Frank. And Frank, Monica, and I got on some conference calls the following weekend to kind of hash through them and explain to Frank what we were doing. And that's resulted in the current draft, the March 2 draft, I think, that we have that's clean.
Called draft 2.1.
Right, so maybe if you, just to show you what the changes are, I think it'd be better if everyone went to draft, the red line draft that's in the back of the packet. It starts at page 1, but
It
it's,
starts on page 13 of what Monica handed.
oh, is there, okay, I don't have separate page numbers. So if you look starting at page 2 of the red line ordinance, you'll start seeing the changes. The first one is, well, there's a formatting change after now there be ordained, but the first real change is under purpose, and that was the addition of the word business, and which was your change, Patrick, just in the purpose of the statute. Section 2.3, we took out the duplicative definition of charge because it was identical to environmental charge, and that caused the numbering to change. We then went to product bag and tried to deal with the issue that the garment bags and dry cleaning bags are really checkout bags. So the language was a little ambiguous, so we tried to make it a little clearer that product bags are bags available for purchase or use by customers, except as enumerated below, are not intended to be checkout bags, and I was thinking that would include the garment or dry cleaning bags. And then we actually added garment bags. So the concept was to make it clear that product bags are not checkout bags, and this is a list of the kind of product bags we can use. I have a couple other changes that I think may revise this a little bit, but we'll go through the changes that are already in the current draft. So the next change was in paragraph 2.10. We went back to the 40% post-consumer recyclable content for paper bags, which we discussed at the last meeting. Written notices was changed.
So that was something that TGS and me agreed with. Okay, so that was a difference between our two. So now we're putting that back in.
Right.
So now we're aligned.
What's that?
So now we're aligned.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, hopefully we'll be aligned after they meet and okay this.
But this is the change we proposed at our last meeting, so
Right.
the current draft now reflects the 40% post-consumer recyclables. The written notices provision was changed, and this is really more a technical one, to provide that written notices shall be hand-delivered to a manager or other person in charge of the business. You don't want a written notice to be handed to a store clerk who may not care about it, may toss it in the trash. You want to give them to somebody who's actually a person in charge, or mail to such a person. So I wanted to clarify that in the written notice provision. That's what most of these changes are. Section 3, which is the actual prohibition, we added, except as otherwise provided herein, no business shall provide or sell plastic or paper checkout bags. That's because we're providing the additional year for the small businesses.
Dave, I just want to go back to that previous section we had.
Notices?
If it is going to be mailed, do we have to state anything in there from the date of the letter of the citation?
Post date.
Postmark could take 3 days to get there, and if they got to respond by X date, there should be some kind of language of,
Well, they have 30 days from the issuance or the mailing of the citation to file a written appeal.
Those are
So-
different days.
What do you mean?
The mailing and the citation could be different days.
Well, no, the mailing service is generally construed as the date of mailing.
if they don't get it for whatever reason?
Well, if it's mailed, it's gonna be mailed by certified mail, return receipt requested, or hand delivered to someone in authority at the store. So there shouldn't be a dispute as to whether it was received or not. If it is, it can be addressed by the hearing compliance officer.
Yeah.
But the 30 days will run from either the mailing or the actual hand delivery of the citation. And that should be plenty of time to send in a written notice or appeal saying, hey, this isn't right, I want to appeal this citation. So again,
It's 2 weeks longer than the traffic ticket.
yeah, so it's plenty of time. I would, I don't know.
So I've heard.
Yeah.
My friends don't.
Parking ticket.
Right. So we made the change to section 3 to just accommodate the additional year for the small stores because they get an exemption from the provisions in the ordinance banning the sale or use of plastic or paper checkout bags. Penalties and enforcement. Section C was just a technical change, to change the word person to business establishment, because the citation is issued to the establishment and not the person.
Where are you?
7C, we changed, it's used to say the person to whom a citation has been issued shall be responsible for reporting subsequent compliance. Well, it's the business establishment that should be responsible for reporting subsequent compliance, not the individual that had the misfortune of actually receiving the citation.
I have a question. 6 references the compliance officer issuing a written warning notice on first violation, initial violation. 7 references the fines as of the first violation.
Correct.
Shouldn't that be first violation after the issuance of a written warning?
There are 2 different things here. There's a citation for a violation and a warning. A warning doesn't require or doesn't incur a penalty.
Right.
So it's when you get issued a citation for a violation that you're going to have to incur the first penalty.
But doesn't 6 reference the fact that there is a violation of the ordinance?
Well, but it's
And
issuing a
initial
written
violation.
warning. But it says shall issue a written warning notice.
I understand, but number 7 then says, on first violation, there's a fine of $150. Shouldn't it be the first violation after the written warning?
Okay.
Well, we can change violation to citation.
No, we can just put.
Well, I think we should just reference the, after the written warning, so that people know you get a warning, and if you do it again, that's a violation and that carries a fine.
After written warning.
Because I think
Okay.
that
We can
the
do that.
semantics of violation and citation would just confuse
Kind
people.
of goes in.
Okay.
And for clarification,
I mean, I think 6, the second sentence, second paragraph of 6 takes care of that, but if you want to make it even clearer, that's fine. Because it says, the second paragraph, that the environmental compliance officer determines that an additional violation of this ordinance has occurred after a written warning notice has been issued for an initial violation, the environmental compliance officer shall then issue a citation as a notice of infraction imposing the penalty against the business's establishment as described in section 7.
Only written by a lawyer.
So Jim,
I didn't write that part.
perhaps you'd be happier in 7A if we change the words from violation to citation. So it would read the fine for the first citation shall be blah, and the second
I
citation
think
shall be.
that would probably do it,
Is
because
that's just,
6 paragraph 2 does differentiate between the
right,
two.
and you have citation as a defined term, so in
Okay.
7A, if you change the 2 words violation to citation, I think that gets to your,
I just want people to understand, they get
Yeah, that's fine.
a written warning, and then if they do it again, citations, fines.
so am I reading this correctly? So 7B, no penalty shall be imposed within 60 days of the first warning notice.
Correct.
So you get a warning, you got 60
60
days
days
to
to
fix
cure.
it, then you potentially could get a citation, and then you cannot get another citation until another 7-day period.
Correct.
So you're handing out a plastic bag, the officer comes in and says, no, you can't do that, here's your written warning. So you have 59 more days to hand out plastic bags.
That's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
right,
Okay? Draw down your inventory, boys.
I guess,
Well, all right. No, go ahead.
can I just ask, if,
That's just what we agreed.
I think, again, if it's a warning, you want to give someone the opportunity to cure it, and it may take them time to do that. So I don't think this is an issue. How does the 7-day restriction on citations interact with the 30-day response time? And maybe the analogy is a parking ticket. You can get a parking ticket every time you park
and you
improperly.
have to take a new appeal.
Right. So if somebody gets a warning, then they should know they're warned. Right. If they then get a citation, they're now incurring a penalty.
They have 30 days from the day of that citation to appeal that citation. If they
Right.
get another one the following week, they have another 30 days to appeal that citation. You
and
appeal
so on
each
and so on.
citation separately.
Right. And the fact that you're cited for the first one doesn't preclude you from getting cited for something else
After another 7 days.
after another 7 days.
Right. And if the hearing officer wants to hear multiple citations if somebody's a recidivist, and the hearing officer wants to consolidate them into one hearing, that's up to the hearing officer. So,
One more question. So if somebody is not collecting this 10-cent penalty from the customers, 10-cent price from the customer, and then they're given 60 days, and then they start collecting before that 7-day period, and then a month later they can stop collecting, then that becomes a separate violation, and then they again get 60 days to correct.
no, you get one warning. You get one initial warning that you violated this ordinance. After that, you start getting citations.
Doesn't matter how you violate it.
Right.
Okay, so if somebody is not collecting the 10 cents and they don't collect it for 59 days, and on 60th day they start collecting it, so then they're in compliance, it's fine. But at any point thereafter in their existence, if they basically stop collecting 10 cents, then it goes back to the 7-day period.
Correct.
Okay. And so then the same applies to if they are distributing bags that do not meet the criteria, the first 59 days are a freebie, essentially, and then they start getting it then any time in their existence if they make a mistake, then it's a 7-day.
Correct.
Yeah.
But the first violation or the first warning could come from failing to collect the 10 cents. The second violation
Correct.
could be handing out non-conforming paper bags. And then you've got a citation and you're facing penalties.
Got it. So if there are two separate events completely, then you get the 60 days. But if it's the same event that repeats, then even if it repeats 2 years later, you have the 7-day.
Right. You only get one warning. Then you're on notice, the statute is out there, you can't complain, I didn't know, nobody told me, And you've had a year and a half to figure it out in the first place, so I think we're being more than generous.
And the compliance officer, we're talking about more than just the kind of bags they're handing out, whether they've got signage, which indicates what the rule is. So, not to pick on the sports shop, but if the sports shop says it looks cheap for us to be charging our customers 10 cents, we'll eat that cost and you get it for free, they can't do that. They have to let the customer know that the 10-cent charge shown on the receipt is as a result of the local ordinance, to encourage them to bring their bags.
Yep.
Okay.
Just for the record, I'm in agreement with the sports shop.
On its what, like the
That-
cheap thing
that
to
it
do?
should- No, the charge should not have to be mandatory. If a store elects not to charge, I think that should be their business option. So if the sports shop elects not to charge 10 cents, then to me, that's a business decision. They've elected to eat the cost.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
But that undermines the deterrent factor in trying to change consumer behavior, because people won't like being charged the 10 cents. I know it's true, the sports shop, people are spending a lot of money there and an extra dime probably won't bother them. But, you can't start carving out this business is for really fancy people and this one's not. So we're gonna charge the people who care about 10 cents more than the people who don't care about it.
I think the grocery stores that have high volume plastic that they're now going, are not going to, they're going to charge and get their 10 cents. So I understand what you're saying, but I'm in agreement with the, that I don't think the 10 cents charge should be mandatory and subject to a fine if the store elects to provide the bag free.
Okay.
So what happens, somebody gets a fine, they get a second fine, and they say, screw it, you can't go and shut a business down, so how
No, they
does
just
it?
get $250 fines every week. So that's a pretty substantial fine, and you're really gonna fight over this?
No, I'm saying, but after that, there's no like, hey, if you have an outstanding parking ticket, you can get, technically arrested or, your car
Well,
can
I
get off
think
the road.
enforcement for all these things is run by the Board of Selectmen, right? If there's somebody who is a recidivist and who compiles 100 tickets over 2 years, right? And says, okay, God, I can't pay $25,000, then I think we would encourage the Board of Selectmen to come to some reasonable accommodation for that business, because we don't want to be putting businesses out of business, right? That would just be, I think, good judgment by the Board of Selectmen acting as the compliance officer. But at the same time, there should be, I mean, if you want people to obey your ordinances, they have to have some teeth to them. So,
And then going back to our beginning of the meeting where we said there were so many people in the favor, so the clients of the businesses want this to happen. So by not, I mean, here in Kansas.
Well, they want the plastic bag ban, but a lot of people wrote in and had questions on the 10 cents.
I mean, I get the point that businesses don't want to charge the 10 cents, but they also don't want to charge sales tax, and they're required to. It's just simply not a choice. So, I mean, I'm sorry that it doesn't fit in with their business model, but I'm sure their sales tax doesn't fit in either.
and in fact, I bet the sports shop could say, hey, if you're a frequent sports shop customer, here, let me sell you a fancy sports shop frequent flyer bag, right? That complies with all the bag rules, right? And you bring your sports shop frequent flyer bag, and we wouldn't have to give you a cheap 10-cent paper bag, because, I mean, this is, again, I don't want to minimize it, because I want to be as business friendly as everyone else around the table. But this is a problem that allows for a lot of creative solutions. So,
Also, they could make a really nice bag that they sell for 10 cents, and,
sure,
it could cost them whatever.
might cost them
Well, their
$5.
bags right now cost $1.
Right, so I mean, but they
So-
could literally get a
No.
$5 bag and give it out for 10 cents if they wanted to do that, if they felt bad.
Right.
So getting back to the final changes to the ordinance from what we discussed last week, 7D is basically just a technical technical revision to ensure that the environmental compliance hearing officer is appointed in accordance with this section from the Connecticut state statutes, and that the hearings be run in accordance with them, as we're required to do by state law. Section 8 is challenging this citation, which is essentially the appeals process. And again, these changes are really just technical, and then make it clear that the changes, in Section B are essentially to show that the business has the right to come in to argue facts and law, and the environmental compliance officer, if he wants, has an opportunity to be heard. So it'll be a full evidentiary hearing to the extent that parties want it, and the hearing officer can make a decision to either affirm the decision of the environmental compliance officer or reverse it. We wanted to make sure that the reversal could be, done not only just if there's not technical compliance with the ordinance, but if the hearing compliance officer feels that there's, that the ordinance wasn't applied reasonably, he has the discretion to do it. I think that's important. So it's just not a kind of per se violation. That they can hear extenuating circumstances.
Would those hearings be public?
Are parking violation hearings public?
I believe so.
Then they would be.
So they could be carried on Channel 79.
Yeah.
People could see the process.
Right. They're done in accordance with this Connecticut General Statute, Section 7-152C. So this is all governed by state law. So I'm sure it's an open and public process.
And that's one of your favorite statutes.
David, maybe it's just the red line that's throwing me off, but the compliance officer is different than the hearing officer.
Yeah.
They're different.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so.
There's the guy who issues the ordinance,
Right.
or issues the citation.
I'm
and the
just
person
trying to
hears the
clarify to
appeal.
make sure that that's the case, because am I reading I'm at section B, upon receipt of timely appeal, the compliance hearing officer shall hold a hearing to consider the facts,
To
an
consider.
argument with respect to the appeal and presented by the business. The environmental compliance officer
Shall also.
shall also have, okay, it's the red line's throwing me off, right?
Yeah, there's a clean copy in the front, which is maybe easier to read.
Thank you, sorry.
No, it's fine. So the next change is in section 9, and this is our attempt to actually kind of put into words this concept of giving small businesses an opportunity to continue to sell bags for an additional year. I know we talked at our last meeting that we were thinking about just single location businesses and we wanted to stay away from square footage. But when I sat back and thought about that, one of our large supermarkets in town is a single location operation. So, you know, if we want to go out, if we want to make sure the supermarkets are in compliance, you know, we've got to do something with the square footage. So I think our thought was 10,000 square feet seems about right for a small business.
So if you look on the last page, you'll see a breakout of all the businesses in town and their sizes.
Thank you, Mark. This must have been a lot of work to compile this last page.
This was actually Tony Homicki and Millie Million of the town assessor's office did this. And Frank Kemp worked on this
So
also.
this is very helpful, and so I think, I just want to recognize, this is new information that I've never seen before as part of any kind of discussion of business in town, so I think this is great work, so I want to thank them for that.
So, and 10,000 seems to work. I mean, Trader Joe's is a little over 11,000. I can't see them shrinking anytime soon, so.
But they already are compliant.
Well, yeah. Okay, so,
So are we in agreement on 10,000?
What is CVS? What's the size of CVS?
That's what I was trying to say, I don't see it.
Trying to see it.
yeah,
It's under, oh, yeah, you know what, that was,
yeah, they're missing
I was
Walgreens
trying
is
to
missing.
see
Well,
Walgreens
Stop
and
and Shop
CVS,
and
because those are
Walgreens
the
is
two that I
the
worry
total.
well,
about.
right,
Walgreens
right.
and Stop and Shop
I
are
see.
at the top.
Right.
So CVS and Walgreens are, no.
Yeah, no, Stop and Shop and Walgreens is
Oh,
divided.
it's combined, yeah.
Why is it combined though? Is it Walgreens by itself?
It's being torn down this summer, according to what Jeremy told
No,
us, so
but
that's
that's-
not gonna matter.
But it's,
Yeah,
but,
but-
yeah, the whole building though, I think is owned by, you know, one.
Yeah, but CVS
person.
downtown is,
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but that's clearly over 10,000
And-
square feet.
The thought that I was having is that other than Spatia, even if you put a 5,000 square feet cap, it would cover everybody else, and especially with the new
Yeah,
businesses
quite.
coming into both Narrowton and Carbon Drive. I don't know how many are going to be between that 5,000 and 10,000 square feet.
yeah, I wonder if we shouldn't, and I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Shouldn't we anticipate, or try and anticipate, if we just say 10,000, why can't we say and/or?
What do you mean?
10,000 and/or, single location or 10,000.
Well, no, because then you are,
No, because
no,
then our big supermarket would be,
Exempt.
or they would be exempt for the extra
no,
year.
you can't do that.
I'm
Also,
gonna, well,
Caribbean
reversing it.
companies-
What I mean is, so that,
I think I get what you mean, but it's kind of hard to phrase it.
No.
that
yeah,
way.
I'm trying to think of how to phrase it. If you violate one or the other, right, or if you're over 10,000, because I'm trying to figure out how we deal with
Well,
all of these new businesses coming into Road Heights.
But if it's more than 5,000, they have to comply, they're new businesses, they
But-
can comply easier than existing businesses.
What?
I think we're missing the forest here, right? Because
Yes.
the only reason that we care what size the business is because they get an additional year to comply,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So by the time any of these new businesses are in town, it'll be
Yes.
after 1/1/21, they all have to comply
Yes.
from day one.
Yes.
So,
Good point.
So are we in agreement on 10,000? Can I have a sense of the meeting?
Yes.
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 Yes, okay.
So in looking at this on the way over here tonight, I had a couple of more changes that I think we should propose to TGSNA before they meet. And again, they're not really that important, but I think they clarify the statute. The first is on, if you go to the clean copy, on section 2.7, paper checkout bag.
What number?
Page 3.
Page 3. Okay. The first line says a paper checkout bag means a paper carryout bag. We're using checkout bag as a defined term, so that should be changed. Carryout bag should be changed to checkout bag. In the first line,
Yes.
okay? Then if you look at
Right,
the,
David, is that, but then there's no way of
It's
term
defining
defining itself.
itself, right.
no, checkout bag is defined in 2.2.
Okay,
Yes, on page 7,
David.
4-3.
David, will you send these corrections to me?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So the next change is a little more substantive. 2.8, the last line says the term plastic bag does not include a product bag, which I think is a great way to help distinguish product bags from plastic checkout bags. But that sentence also belongs in paper checkout bag. that the term paper checkout bag does not include a product bag. Because you can go into a store and get a paper product bag. And, you don't want any distinction or confusion that a paper product bag is somehow a checkout bag,
Yeah, because it could be a
I
nice
agree.
paper that is not.
right? So.
And then, David, you have that in section 2.9, product bag means a paper or plastic bag.
Right.
So I think you've anticipated the other half of that already. And I think your change to 2.7 is a good one also.
And so in 2.9, I guess I was concerned that that garment bags and dry cleaning bags are essentially checkout bags. So that's why I added the line, it says a plastic bag, a product bag means plastic or paper bags available for purchase or checkout by customers of business establishes that, except as enumerated below, are not intended to be checkout bags. I think if we add that other sentence to paper bags, which is that a paper bag or a plastic bag is not a product bag, you don't need except as enumerated below. I think that phrase, except as enumerated below, which I added a couple of weeks ago, is confusing. So I propose striking that out.
I just have one question, maybe I'm just confused. I know I'm just confused. But like, when you talk about the product bag, right? So if I go into the deli and they put my sandwich, they wrap it up, but then I don't take a bag to take that sandwich, then I'm walking out with a product bag.
Right.
Not a.
Not a checkout bag.
Not a checkout bag.
Right.
That's okay.
That's why I want to add, that a term paper checkout bag does not include a product bag. So if your wrapped sandwich would be a product bag, if you walk out of the store with it, that's okay,
That's okay. Yeah, that's, okay, got it.
to make sure that's clear.
Yes.
All right?
Safe.
Right,
I'm
right.
safe.
So we talked about adding citation in section 7. Section 6 is again kind of a minor one. We have the word warning notice in both paragraphs, that the environmental compliance officer shall issue a written warning notice. Why don't we just call it a written warning, right? I mean, notice seems to be surplusage. So I would take out the word notice. It appears there in the next paragraph in 6 and then in 7B. And I think that's it. So if those changes are okay with everyone, I'll forward them to Monica and Frank.
What is a garment bag?
Oh, like if you buy a suit at Brooks Brothers, they give you kind of a vinyl garment bag, or, at Helen, a dress shop or something like that. I mean, those are,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I think to try to call those, I mean, they technically are checkout bags, because you could have multiple suits or shirts in a garment bag, but, I think it's probably a little overkill to include those in this.
Yeah, I agree.
This is going to yours, Ralph, going to the lobster.
Okay.
It says potted plants or other items where dampness may be a problem. Wouldn't dampness from a lobster be a problem? So that should be,
Possibly.
you should be able to put those, okay.
Yeah.
That's how I would
Yeah.
read that.
Okay.
Okay. I
So
don't-
lobster guy is safe.
People don't sell dry lobsters,
No.
as far as I know.
Yeah, they come out of a tank of water.
So they can.
So I'm
so
sure
they
there's
can-
going to be some, because the other option is to include lobster in that long list of.
No,
exemptions.
no, no,
No,
no,
we
you're
want
gonna
to
do
make this
that.
list shorter as possible.
Yeah, but he's good.
Maybe you have
His
friends.
things are gonna be fine.
And we have for container
Can we get a full
wrapped
lobster
frozen
for that?
food, meat, or fish as well. So
I
lobsters
think we're
are
good.
close to fish.
So if he takes out his present day plastic bag and he puts a lobster in it, we're gonna interpret that as being a product bag and so forth, and so therefore he's okay with that bag.
That's how I would read it.
Not too bad.
Well, I think the fisherman's, that's gonna,
You can't really carry out the lobster.
yeah, no, I don't think anyone would try to do that anyway.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Right.
And you don't want to put it in your reusable canvas bag, because it will make it definitely funky.
He brought that up, he brought that
Yeah.
up to himself. It's like,
So Monica, I asked you at the meeting, or before the meeting, about whether town council has changed is opinion with respect to the environmental charge.
I was gonna do that in new business, but, no, he is not.
Okay.
He has serious concerns about the validity and if it will be upheld in court, and he would advise against. But,
Sorry, the validity of,
of the 10 cents.
The environmental fee. And his basis for that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, did he cite a precedent or some
No.
prior case or something like that?
And is he still convinced it's a tax? I thought his initial opinion was that because this 10-cent fee is really a tax in the towns.
No, nobody
No.
thinks it's a tax.
Okay. So you
That's
just,
what you said initially.
I thought so too.
So
Yeah,
that's
that it was
what
more of a
you
tax.
said, that it
He
really.
he has not changed.
Well, because I think initially that there was the thought that the 10 cents was going to come to the town.
No, I think, no.
Well,
Yeah, no, the initial thing that I read, he was concerned that it would be, even though it's not coming to the town, it was still considered a tax.
So Monica, is he gonna come to TGSNA tomorrow night? Wayne
I-
Fox, our town council?
I don't know who's going to be at that meeting.
Because I think this could be a stake in the heart of a lot of work that's been done on this. If town council comes to the RTM and says he thinks this is not legal, I won't vote for it.
Despite the fact that Stanford, Norwalk.
He's our town
New
council.
Canaan have all
He's
enacted this?
our town council. I'm not looking at the other towns. If a client of yours didn't take your advice, counselor,
It's their prerogative.
I don't want
And
to
that's
walk
what-
into
and
it.
that's
I mean,
really-
that's
and that's
why I
what
think
he
he
said.
needs a,
You're right.
we
So-
want a written opinion from Wayne. I want a written opinion to know what his basis is for this, because I don't think he's correct.
Or does he have a suggestion on how to make it
Right,
legal?
maybe there's a way.
Because I think that would be very helpful. I mean, I assume he's got his reasons. I agree with David, we should find out what they are. But if there's something we can do to make it legal in his eyes, I think that would go a long way before the RTM.
We should at least consider it.
I think towns have an inherent ability to protect their environment and public health and safety, which is what this environmental fee does. So I don't see why we're prohibited from doing that. And all these towns around us have enacted it, and Greenwich is going back and probably going to enact it. So, to gut the 10 cents really guts much of the purpose of this ordinance.
I'll ask him for.
So I'd like to see a written opinion. I don't, I love Wayne, and he's a very smart lawyer, and I don't distrust his opinion, but this is the sort of thing where you're forced to write it out and cite, legal precedents. It makes you think things through more clearly. And I think, given that, as Jim says, this could drive a stake into the heart of this ordinance,
Good.
we should get some sort of written opinion from him stating why he thinks this is not going to pass muster.
Okay, I'll ask him.
Okay?
Because we've all seen that process happen
Yeah.
in the meeting where
Yeah.
we debate
Yeah.
around for 30 or 60 minutes, and then someone says, well, how can we approve this if the town council says?
Yeah.
Right.
That ends up being the debate ender.
No, as Jim just said, he won't vote for it.
Which we
So-
should preclude if we can.
Right, okay.
And as it is, I'm actually with Dick in that I'd like to see the 10 cents in there, but if the business wishes to cover that cost, they should have that right and put up a big sign saying, we are paying 10 cents on your behalf.
Yeah.
Some kind of education.
Hang on, if the sport shop doesn't want to have 10 cents on a receipt, there's no way they're going to want to put up a big sign that says, consumer aware, we have covered your 10 cent per bag fee because we don't want to diminish your shopping experience.
What a swell guy.
Exactly. Love the Grillo family.
But I'd like to give them the opportunity to run their business and decide how to do that. Hopefully they would put up a sign.
Or they'd have to put up a sign.
Yeah, they would.
Or they'd be in violation.
Right, right. So they would put up a sign.
Okay, well, we voted on everything else. Do you want to vote on the 10-cent charge? I can't remember if we voted on
Do you want a sense of the meeting? I mean,
Sense
We
of the
haven't
meeting.
voted on it, we only take consensus.
it. Okay, sense of the meeting. Who wants the 10 cents charge for businesses?
As a mandatory,
Is it mandatory?
As
mandatory, yes.
Is it mandatory? Okay, so we have 3, 5. Okay,
and
And
again,
how many against?
and how many against?
For clarity, I'd like to see the 10 cent charge, no matter what.
Are you voting against, Monica?
I
But
am-
I'd
yeah,
like to have the
I'm raising my
business
hand saying
make
that
the
it
choice
should
of-
not have to be mandatory, that's all I'm saying.
That's what
But
we're,
the business has to pay the 10 cents?
well, they have to pay 10 cents for a compliant bag.
No, it's just not mandatory. There is no, if they want to give the bag out, you're not going to record 10 cents. You just gave the bag out
Then what's the point, though?
because it's their option as a business. If they want to not charge,
But how's that gonna help?
Richard, how's that change business?
How's that gonna
I
help
think,
change?
I think as written, behavior will change. That's how I feel. That's how I do it.
But how?
So if Whole
Well,
Foods-
I have a house in Montauk. East Hampton has a bag ordinance. When I go into the hardware store and I get some small nuts and bolts, they put it in a small bag, brown plastic bag, and they don't charge me.
so-
If I get something
That's a problem.
bigger, no, but if I get something big, they do charge me if they use it a big bag. To me, that's the option of the store.
so I have a question.
But that's not
No,
answering
no,
my-
because
my-
but
my-
behavior has changed, because when you go to the supermarket, you are not getting the plastic bags anymore. So from my viewpoint, significant consumer behavior has changed, because you go to the IGA and you don't get a plastic bag anymore. So I feel there has been a
But the
change.
problem is the paper bags are just as bad as the plastic. The change in behavior is to have the consumer bring a reusable bag to the store, not to just have the stores stop distributing plastic bags.
I don't
All right, so what you're saying then, what started out as a plastic bag ban is now morphing into something larger.
No.
Yes, you are, yes, you are. You're saying, now not only can you, not only are you banning plastic bags, but now you're taking it a step further. You're saying, and if in lieu of that, yes, you can have a
Paper bag.
paper bag, which now has to also be 40% recycled material paper bag, and you have to charge a dime for it. I mean, I think you've taken this a number of steps beyond banning a plastic bag.
But that's how the statute's been since we started discussing it.
So I'm not saying I agree at the beginning, okay?
Yeah,
It's only been
Okay,
about-
wait,
Fair
it's not a
enough.
free-for-all, it's not a free-for-all. Repeat it, Heather.
I have a question. So, to those who are opposed to that, and I do understand, like, for me, taking that 10-cent, charge was a big deal, and I was actually on the fence, and then, I'm trying to understand why some of the businesses were opposed last time around to this, and that they have come around this time. One of the things is if I go to Palmer's and they charge me 10 cents, and then I go to Whole Foods and they don't charge me 10 cents, if I'm on the road and I realize, oops, I don't have bags, where am I more likely to go? Am I going to go and support Palmer's, or am I going to go and support Whole Foods? I mean, the writing is clear on the wall. So if we are truly trying to protect small businesses, who are going to be most hurt by the increase in the cost, and who are less likely to be able to waive that charge? To me, it's like, you know what I mean, like, I'm
Let me
having,
just say this.
yeah.
If
Let
you buy
me finish. So what I'm trying
five
to say-
bags of
let me
food,
finish,
but
please.
5 bags of Whole
Can I
Foods,
finish, please?
I don't think the customer cares. 50 cents. I don't think it makes a difference.
And what I'm saying is, if I'm driving, and I'm driving to either Palmer's or Whole Foods, I can assure you, I will drive to Whole Foods and get the free bags rather than go and pay 50 cents that I didn't need to pay for. So that's my whole thing, that we have to take into consideration that side of the conversation.
And I think
Because we have
yeah.
been, we tried this a few years ago, and we were voted down because of this clause not being there.
Patrick?
Ralph, to your point, and you, I thought, approved this, and that's the purpose. This ordinance is intended to reduce bag waste in order to protect and preserve the environment in Darien for the benefit and welfare of its residents by encouraging the use of reusable checkout bags through the phase-out of plastic checkout bags and non-recycled paper checkout bags, and the introduction of a charge on recycled paper checkout bags to help businesses defray the incremental cost of providing recycled paper checkout bags instead of plastic checkout bags. So what part of that do you oppose?
No, I think, I'm going with what was said
But
earlier, where
that's the purpose. That's what we've just said. We're trying to reduce waste.
Mhm.
In particular, and most emphasized, on plastic waste.
Yeah, plastic bag.
Okay, but it says is intended to reduce bag waste.
Again, I'm
But
coming
to
from the
protect and
perspective that the intent here, I thought coming into this was banning plastic bags.
So then you're opposed to this purpose?
I think it's gone beyond just a plastic bag ban. It's
always been more.
taken on a more of a life beyond that, okay? And that's what I'm
And
not
and
totally
everybody
comfortable
has a
with.
right, everybody has a right to that, and I think that this conversation is important because we're gonna have another public hearing, And at that time, people will understand that this is not just getting rid of plastic bags at CVS. It's actually deeper than that. And if we are not in total agreement and we have our own considerations and concerns, you can bet that the community will, and you can bet that the RTM will. So it's a good discussion, and it's a good discussion to have with other people, and it's a discussion where we might not ever all come to a unanimous agreement. We don't have to come to unanimous, we have to come to a majority, okay? All right,
I guess,
so,
if I can ask Rolf one more question, where do you think things have changed? Because I guess maybe what I was reacting to in your earlier comment is this has now become something else. I mean, from my view of it, this has always been a plastic bag ban coupled with a charge for paper bags.
well,
and I
those
don't
were
think that's
always
changed.
variables that we
Mhm.
were talking about.
Right.
You know, we talked about the mill rate, that was a variable. We talked about the recycle thing, that was a variable. And we talked about the 10-cents thing, that was a variable. And so,
Yeah, and the 40% recycled
And the
content of
40%.
the bag is another
Right.
variable.
right, so once we got into the weeds, you know, it's complicated and it's,
But we are trying to encourage people to bring their own bag, are we not?
Okay. If you want to bring your own bag, can you do that today?
Yeah,
so.
but it's not working, is it?
Well, I don't think, I'm not sure that the town in general has done enough of a job to just make people aware of the whole issue, that they could voluntarily start to do some of these things on their own. Some people have.
But that's,
Well,
I think we could go,
well,
all right, by imposing fees and violations and
No,
compliance
no,
officers,
Ralph.
and, you know,
No, Ralph,
we're turning, that's what I'm saying, it's turning into like a whole.
listen, I'm opposed to any new regulation without it being justified up the yin yang. I really am. But I've seen the ill effects, and I go to the dump every week, several times a week. I see the ill effects, and I think I don't know how we can't encourage people to bring their own and start. I mean, in Europe, this is a no-brainer. It's already done.
There is a big difference between now and the last time this came up. And it is the fact that these bags are not recyclable anymore, okay? Now, the good news, I did meet with the deputy chair for Public Works and Darren, and the good news is that these are not gumming up our machine in Stanford, okay? That machine was retrofitted, it costs like $100,000, and this thing runs 22 hours a day. There's no problem. But they do have this like vacuum hose, and they suck out the bags, and then they take them to Bridgeport and they burn them. So they are burned. So that's not good, and they're not recycled, and they do contaminate other recyclable materials. But the good news is they're not trashing the machines out, so that's good. Okay, so I think we've came to a decision. We have some differences, but that's to be expected. I want to move on to the next part, number 7, which is a public hearing. So the kind of calendar will be that TGS&A will meet, we'll give them our opinions, and David, if you can, do you think you can get me that by tomorrow?
Oh, yeah, no, I can, I'll scan it at work and send it to PDF to you.
And then Public Health and Safety will probably meet again next week. And I would like to try to get this on the rules agenda for April 1st. And so to back out, a public hearing would happen probably the last week in March. Okay, so we can get on the rules agenda for the 1st. Does that sound acceptable?
It's
Is
going to be
that-
tight timing with a 2-week notice.
It will be.
Is that the week of school vacations?
No, we just did that.
We just,
Well, there's another one in April.
Yeah, that's April 15th.
oh, okay.
Celebrate pay.
Well, you know what, the public hearing has to be with all the committees, so what I will
But anyway,
do,
get it in
I
before
will-
the summer is what we're shooting
yes,
for.
would definitely, yes. And I would like to do it before the May
Before the
meeting, because then we are stuck probably getting this done in June. So if we can get it done
Because May is occupied with budget.
Right, May is the budget, so we're not gonna get on. So our goal is to either get it on the RTM for the 22nd or looking at June. I don't have the June date in front of me. Does that sound right for people? That sound like a plan? Okay.
I think that's great.
Any other new business? Nope.
I just want to commend you on all the work that you have
You're
done.
doing a great job.
It's been extraordinary, and you kind of drew the short straw when we were looking for a chairman.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
other guy took
How did
off
Mark
for some
know this?
unknown reason.
Let me just
But you
say,
have been extraordinary, and I
Thank
really
you.
commend you for all the work you've done.
Yeah,
thank
you're
you.
here.
I really appreciate that. Yes, I did mention that to Mark. I don't even drink beer, but I told him he owes me a beer.
More than that, but
I
Yes,
imagine it's well above 10,000.
Yes.
But you don't know.
yes,
What, CVS?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, I'm not sure.
Are there any other big ones that are not on here that anybody can see?
Kirby, I didn't know how big that is, it's not on here either.
No, that's fine.
Kirby's smaller.
Yeah.
That's
Would you like a motion to adjourn, Madam
Yes,
Chair?
could I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.